Sheetrock is a good one. So sheetrock, this one's pretty easy. And when I give people my sheetrock price, they're usually pretty surprised by it. But I will tell you, Rashad's met with a few sheetrock guys, and he's found people already between $15, $15 to $20 a sheet labor. Simplest way is if you don't have a lot of volume, you're going to be more towards the $20 a sheet. Maybe if you only had 50 sheets to do, that would be considered low volume. If you have like a couple hundred sheets to do, like if you're sheetrocking a whole house, and this is actually another thing that probably matters, like a whole standard house is going to be about 150 to 300 sheets. Right. So just giving you a ballpark. Someone's like, hey, it's only 100 sheets. They might be low. Or if they're like, hey, it's 500 sheets, you might want to go ask questions. But standard house, we're usually like 175 to 250, even to tighten it up a little more. And you know what? I might give you that because that's actually probably a little more like a tighter. I don't want to give you too wide of a range. It can be as much as 350 if the house is a little bit bigger, up 300, 350. But general range is this. This is for standard house. So like it's a great like little rule of thumb just to know that you're there. And if you were doing like the whole house, then you would definitely want to be around 15 to 17, the lower end. If you're doing say just like 50, 100 sheets, you might be between 18 and 20 on the higher end, because the more volume they do, the better pricing they'll give you because they're in the house. Now that's hung and finished, right? So that's them hanging it and finishing it. If you had to put a number, and let's say you're paying 20 bucks a sheet, it's usually about half the money to hang it and half the money to finish it. So that's the general rule, right? Never, if you can, never get two people to do the job differently. Don't get one guy to hang and one guy to finish, because what will happen is the guy will hang it incorrectly and the finisher will have to fix it or say it's created a lot more work and they need more money. They'll talk crap about it. So if you could, it's nice to have the person who's doing the sheetrock hang and finish it. Or if they're managing the fact and they have two different crews, that's fine. But one person should be responsible for the outcome. Right. And then the way I pay them, if this say takes, and by the way, we always want to talk about how long does it take. So this is something we forgot to talk about on here, and we'll talk about on there. But you guys I kind of think I told you. But on sheetrock, let's say we're doing a whole house 1 week. That's it. A good sheetrock crew can knock it out in a week. What are most people going to tell you? 2 to 3 weeks. That means you're not going to be in there working very hard. Good sheetrock crew can hang 250 sheets in 2 days. Have first coat on in 2 days also, and then they'll take a day or two for it to dry, and then you come back in a day and do the second coat, and come back a couple days later, do the second coat. They're done. That's how quick they are, because they're good at sheetrock. People do professional sheetrock quick. So just know you're looking somewhere between like 3 to 7 days for the work. I mean, if you get someone who's going to be 2-3 weeks, you better be able to make sure that they're going to be able to work with everyone else, because you're going to need to get other things going. You can't have your house sitting at 2 to 3 weeks. So let's pretend you got a guy that'll do the sheetrock for $1,500 and says I'll be 3 weeks, and then you got a guy that says I'll do it for $2,000 and he's going to be 7 days. Like on average, our hard money cost is about $100 to $150 a day. So that 2 weeks represents 14 days of hard money costs. At even just $100, that's $1,400 more. So where you think you're paying $500 less, you're actually paying $1,000 more to have that sheetrock guy do it. Plus the person, in my experience, who needs 2 to 3 weeks to do it usually ends up 2 to 3 weeks later, has not done it, and the work looks like crap, and I can't get them to do it right, and it just becomes overwhelming to them because they don't really know what they're doing. And the person who's like, I can do it 3 to 7 days, usually is like a very experienced sheetrock person who has skills. So that's the sheetrock stuff. Sheetrock cost for the material is, so just for the sheetrock itself is usually about $10 a sheet, but let's go on Home Depot and check. 1/2 inch ultra light 4x8 gypsum, almost $12 a sheet. Ew. Definitely getting more expensive. It was only about $8 a sheet when I started flipping houses, by the way. There's our sheetrock suppliers too, by the way, that usually you can get this stuff cheaper than Home Depot. So there's like a local sheetrock company, but usually it says bulk price $11.66. You might be able to get this down to like $9 or something. So you talk, if you have a good sheetrock guy who does it professionally, they'll know the place that's cheaper than Home Depot and ask them, hey, is there a place cheaper than Home Depot? Do you buy this stuff? And what I like about most of those places, that so they can compete with Home Depot, they're cheaper. Plus they'll deliver and stock the sheetrock in the house for you, usually for like $1 a sheet. So you might be able to get it $2 cheaper and then use $1 of the $2 to get them to put it in the house for you. And if you're buying like 200 sheets, that's a lot of work to carry 200 sheets of sheetrock in a house. That's like serious business. So 12 bucks a sheet. Then you need all these things, right? Joint compound, drywall tape, all those. So we probably are looking at about $15 a sheet for materials. So if you're $15 a sheet in labor, you're 30 bucks. If you pay 20, you're at 35. The general rule of thumb is I like to be somewhere between 30 and $35 for labor and material. So there you go. I mean, this is about the best I can give you on sheetrock. Now, for repairs, again, like if we're talking about a house needs general point up and repairs and it doesn't need a lot of sheetrock hung, that's going to end up being more of a labor cost. You might be like, hey, it's going to take me like 3 days of like pointing this stuff up. Hey, so 600 bucks, 200 bucks a day. But you'd be surprised. I have a guy who told me he wants to make 200 bucks a day. We've been trying to work with him. He did like one job where I was like, okay, how many days will this take? He's like, 5 days. I'm like, okay, how many guys? Me and one other guy. So I'm like, $2,000. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 2,500. He came in and did the job in like 3 days with one other guy, and then came to me and I gave him 2,500. Remember now, so he's made way more than 200. He did it way faster than he thought, and he came to me and said, "I ain't making no money on this." And I'm like, "What?" I'm so confused, man. Like the math stuff's not adding up. Like you're making way more than 200 a day. I thought you did really well, and I didn't even care. I was happy for you because I don't care if you do it faster. I just need fixed pricing. Anyhow, then he comes on the $2,500 job. We gave him another one, and he thought he'd do it for the 2,500. He told us 4,800. And then like it took you 3 days, you and one other guy. So some people just can't wrap their head around this stuff. We need people that can. So if someone's going to charge you a bunch of money to point up, usually I'm spending about 500 to 1,000 to point up if there's a lot of point up in the house. And I would tell you another really big sheetrock piece of advice is that you can save a lot more than you think. And people will always tell you, oh, it's easier to just hang new stuff. And it costs the same thing in labor to hang new stuff as it would just to fix this. But what they're not considering is that like half of your cost of it is material. So if we're at $15 sheet to hang and $15 sheet for material, like you might be able to say, hey, I'll give you the, $15 roughly is 200 sheets. I'll give you, $2,000 to fix the whole house. Well, you don't have to buy all the material. So you're saving money, right? The key is that it is always cheaper to save it if they can. A good sheetrock guy will know how to save things. They'll know how to keep stuff. We want to keep as much as we can. We have paneling if it's good and it's like in a bedroom, it's not real ugly and it's in nice shape. We want to primer it and paint it, like in basements as much as possible. We always want to save as much as we can. Don't just tear a whole house apart and sheetrock it, because you're not just talking about the thousands you save with the sheetrock, but if you tear all the sheetrock out, then you got demo of tearing the sheetrock out. If you don't laminate it, I like to laminate over if I am going to do it, but then you usually have to do all new doors and trim because now you got all new sheetrock, requires all new doors and trim. You also, if you tear out all the sheetrock, you might get behind the walls and now some electric that was grandfathered in was totally up to code, now isn't. Now all of a sudden, when it's all open like that, then they're going to make you bring everything up to 2018 code. It won't matter if the house is the 2010 code, which is totally safe and fine. They're just going to make you bring it up to date. So I don't like to tear things out if I can. I'm really big on just sheetrocking basements and doing repairs and saving as much sheetrock as possible within reason, as long as you can make it look good. So that's kind of my big sheetrock lesson, because there's like a lot on sheetrock, a lot of opportunity to lose money on sheetrock if you're not being thoughtful of it. And this is the general cost.